Today, I've got a really fun special guest. We're going to actually do a client success interview today. And I'm really excited because Chelsea Kroes, who's joining me right now, was
Yes.
one of my clients from about 3 years ago. We've developed a strong friendship since then. But I'm excited for her to tell her story about what she's using from the relevant recruiter method from 3 years ago. And I know you guys are really excited to hear about how she's traveling the world. And I just talked to her beforehand. She's got some fun stuff coming up. So Chelsea, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much. It's so fun to chat now. I know we've done like the beginning of COVID, we were like Zoom happy hours, all of
Yep.
that stuff. So it's fun to connect even without a cocktail.
Yeah. Well, we can pop those open if we want to, but
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. Awesome. So how are things up in Minnesota there?
That's why I travel so much. It's cold here. No, it's starting to warm up here a little bit. I think we're all excited for spring, especially this year after being inside so much. I've got two young boys myself, so as you know,
Yep.
they get sick of being cooped up indoors in the winter. So lots of getting out, excited that spring's here. But yeah, everything's good.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's dive into your story, Chelsea. I would love to, just share a little background. How did you get into the recruiting industry?
Yeah, great question. So earlier in my career, I'm from Minneapolis originally, went away to school, Purdue University. There I decided I really kind of landed on pursuing a career in human resources. And I started off, had a great gig with Rolls-Royce in Indianapolis, working in an HR generalist role there. And really thought I wanted to move back to the Twin Cities and wanted to just like round out my experience. So I thought like, hey, I'll go do a little bit of this recruiting thing that'll help round out my background. And then like, this is the fun part of HR, right? Like, this is the fun stuff. You get to reach out, talk to new people every day, get to make that perfect match between companies and employees. So I've been recruiting in the Twin Cities ever since. Variety of different companies that I've worked for, probably most notably Target Corporation is a Fortune 50 organization. Worked
Mm-hmm.
there for a number of years, made a lot of great connections. I know, Donnie, you worked with some of my friends, even from Target as well, that are
Yep. Yep.
now out on their own
Renee.
in the agency. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Renee.
Heck yeah. Hey, Renee, if you're watching.
Yep. And so that was a great experience. I also recruited locally for most recently the Toro Company. They are an awesome organization to work for as well, but really always had a strong entrepreneurial streak and knew I wanted to go out on my own, start my own agency. I had a mentor that was really supportive and encouraging me to do that. So launched and went out on my own, actually never having been on the agency side of the business, only having been
Got
in
it.
corporate recruiting. So
Nice. When did you, from a timeline standpoint, when did you start in the recruiting industry?
yeah, I mean, it was about 6 months before you and I started working together. So
Oh, wow.
about 3.5, yeah, years ago. So, and I was really fortunate in that I was leveraging my existing network that I had in place. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a pretty solid business from the get-go. Had some great searches within my first couple of months of going into business, had solid six-figure revenue, but really realizing like, gosh, from never having been on the agency side and having to do business development, I just didn't really know where to begin. Like cold calling, I mean, I can cold call candidates all day, but like had never really done that on the business development side. And just looking at it, like there's got to be an easier way, right? When you're a
Right.
solo operator, it's like I'm not going to just like pick up the phone and call into orgs all day looking for work. I mean, that's just not my big. I'd rather spend the time on searches and making those matches. And that's where started to look like, okay, where can I shore up some of my own opportunities? And knowing that that was in marketing and business development, you had reached out and we had connected, and really took it from there. So
Nice, nice. So when you went out on your own, essentially your biggest, like you could recruit, you knew that part, like you had that dialed in,
yeah,
but business development, like you said, you'd never even been an agency recruiter working for somebody else before. So this was a whole new game for you.
a whole new ball game. I mean, literally, I remember like one of my first big clients that I engaged with, and I went and I pitched them, and they were like, "Great, we're ready to sign contract on 3 searches." And I called my mentor and I was like, "Do you have a contract that I could use for multiple searches? Do I do 3 separate contracts? Like, I don't know how this works. Like, can you help me here? I'm like, am I supposed to give a discounted rate when I'm doing?" Like, I had literally no clue how to price myself, how to anything. I mean, I was just
Right.
like going by the seat of my pants. So
Yeah.
it was definitely you don't want to like make mistakes either with your own brand and something like that. So where I
Right.
couldn't shore up, that's where on the marketing side, I was like, there's got to be a better way. I had these existing relationships that were really trusting, but I thought like, man, reaching out to new clients, like you want to have some of these things ironed out. So
Right. Well, I think that's really inspiring because I know that there's a lot of people that think about starting their own agency, but they, the story that a lot of people have is like, hey, I need to have all my ducks in a row before I go take action. And, exactly. Yeah. Just go do it and figure it out as you go. I mean, that's how I think a lot of successful people do it, is just taking the action on, what you want. So, we lost your camera there for a second, but no big deal.
hey, sorry about that. The sound cut out for a moment for me.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You hear me back again?
Yep, now I can hear you again.
Okay,
Sorry.
Cool. Well, I was just saying that I think it's inspiring that you basically went out, took the leap without figuring it all out, but then how you actually were able to figure it out, and probably figured it out faster once you were kind of put into that fire of like, oh shoot, I've got 3 searches that are being thrown on my plate here. What do I do? You go figure out the contract then, rather than trying to figure those things out beforehand, because I think that just the action is what's important. So that's really cool, really inspiring. Outside
well,
of
whether you're in a corporate environment or agency, like that company owns your time, right? So you're not
Right.
setting it up day to day what it looks like. And it is hard. I mean, I'm somebody working professional, 2 kids. My husband's in a professional role, really busy as well. So it's like, you don't have time to iron out all these details. And I'll tell you, when you don't have a paycheck coming in, that lights a little additional fire too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What were you kind of most fearful of, like when you went from the corporate into like the agency side? Like, did you have any kind of fears that you were facing as you went out?
I would say the biggest one for me is never having done the business development. Like I had some good relationships, and even as I was landing searches, I thought like every search I'd land, I would work with that client and do a great job. But I was like, man, at some point they're going to build their team to such a point they're going to have some internal recruiting, or they're going to do. And what happens when my network just kind of like taps out? Like, what am I going to do when I get to the end of my referral? I think, Donnie, when you and I worked together, I was like, yeah, I'm really comfortable. Like we're, making 6-figure income, all of that. But like, I knew like a huge portion of my business was all from like one really large client was like
Right.
over 50% of my business. And so I was saying like, yeah, and I've got a couple of these other small ones, but it's like a one hire every maybe 18 months that they're going to need from me. So like, what am I doing in the meantime, and how am I kind of staying busy? So
Right. Right. And I know a lot of people are interested in, hearing how you've been able to run the business successfully,
yeah.
as well as be able to have a lot of freedom, travel the world. What's that been like for you? I remember you sent me a photo a couple years back when you were like, I think you were in Scottsdale at the time, out at the thing, and you said, "Oh, I just got a new client just signed up while you were sitting there by the poolside." So
yeah, that's a huge joke with my husband and I. Actually, he's like, every time we go on vacation, you seem like I'll be sitting at the pool being like, yeah, when I get back, I'm really going to have to ramp up on business development. And then it's like, ping. And I'm like, oh, never mind. They just sent over, and so my husband all the time is like, you close more work when you're on vacation. Like if I'm like, I don't have enough work going on, right? Or like, I need to do some business development. He's like, let's just plan a trip and it'll come. That is one of the things is like, once you put yourself out there and from going through the program, you really learn how to market yourself, learn your niche and how to focus in that area. It really is the clients start coming to you. I mean, so it wasn't even for me, just like there's more cold outreach. I also started getting way more referrals from my clients. I started just building that naturally. So yeah, for me, I know as I talked to you, Donnie, and I was looking at, I talked to probably 5 to 10 different coaches to kind of help shore this up as I was looking at your program and some others. And I remember everybody's talking like, oh, I'm going to take you to 7-figure revenue, or I'm going to help you build your team. I'm going to help you do this. And at least for me, it wasn't about necessarily more money, growing bigger, hiring a team. I don't want to be the biggest in my area. Like,
Right.
I just want high quality clients that I can build close partnerships with, do great work, and still lead a really balanced life. So it was more important to me that, certainly I love making more money, and
Right.
that's all great. Somebody needs to pay for all this travel I'm doing, but it is, my husband and I probably average during non-COVID times, like we go on a vacation once a month, and it's sometimes just a long weekend. Sometimes it'll be like a, 5-day or a week-long trip, a little bit bigger. But it's great. I mean, this is a role in recruiting. Everybody that's probably watching this knows you can work from anywhere. I mean, so
Right.
I'll go on site to a lot of my clients and do the meet and greet thing. But I have clients that I'll do that once, and I will then have worked with them for years and not had to meet with them on site again. So you can do this job really from anywhere. And so it's a perfect setup to, for my lifestyle, to be able to, still have time with my family, be able to travel and work from anywhere. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, that's really cool, and I think that's cool, and for those listening, is like building the business the way that you want. You shouldn't feel external pressure to have a 7-figure business or have whatever somebody else has. And I think that's what's really cool, Chelsea, is like, we talked early on and it was like, this is a lifestyle. Yeah, you wanted to maximize your income, but it was also like, how do I continue to, have the freedom with my family, with my travel and being the mom and being, a wife and being, all the things that you are, was just as important as growing the business.
That's completely it. And the other piece I'll say that's been really nice too is I think this is a business where people can get burned out really, quickly too, because we work so hard and it can be so intense. And I mean, when the money is there and it's like easy to take on a lot of searches, like you just pick up the work and you do it, because it's hard to turn it down sometimes.
Right.
But with that, the other thing that I think this program that's really given me that's a lot more freedom of is I can say like, gosh, I just want to take a break and I want to take a little bit of time. And like, I had that even, end of last year, things started to really pick up again for me in the fall. Like right before Christmas in early December, I signed like 3 contracts on new retained searches. So I was just like grinding it out, getting that work done. And I remember in early January, I closed a role and I was just like, you know what? I think I just need a couple weeks to take off. And it was actually great timing. I did a yoga retreat in Costa Rica at the beginning of this year. So it was like, I'm just going to not take on any new searches. So I had like a week before my trip. And then I had this whole week in Costa Rica where I was like, I mean, I'll check email and respond to things if they need it, but I had closed out my last search just before. And I'm like, I'm just going to take this time to unplug and relax. And it was the best thing in the world for me. And I could do that confidently, knowing that like when I came back, I was like, I can just turn on the faucet and get a couple new searches and go again, and that's a huge piece of, I think, insecurity in this business is like, where's my next search coming from? Where's my next big chunk of income going to come from? And in this, I mean, it just gives you the reassurance of like, the business is there when I'm ready for it. Right. So it's like, you don't feel bad stepping away, taking a break for your own mental health and well-being. So I could, hang out with my friends in Costa Rica, have a great time, unplug, do some yoga, and then come back and get after it. So it's awesome.
And it's really funny. It's awesome how I think the mental health part is so important to be able to unplug. Totally. And uncheck. But there's so many times, and I know in my past, I've been on vacation and like you think you're unplugged, but you're not, because you're thinking about, what's going on with work, what's going to happen when I don't get back. And, your mindset, you probably don't even get as much credit, but like you're attracting that energy in to you, and it's really amazing. And, one thing you just brought up that I don't think, and I know a lot of people ask questions about it, but you do mostly retained search, right? And you're getting retained search all from the results of the program. Because that's when people are like, oh, well, it works for recruiters, well, work for retain. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yep. So getting specific into some of the work that we did, together, I mean, what's kind of the biggest thing that you feel like has had the biggest impact on your business?
Yeah, huge mental shift for me was, I think I was really broad before, and I was thinking like, I'll mainly do manufacturing, but I'm not going to pick an area of specificity and really limit myself. I mean, that was my mindset, is I don't want to limit what kind of searches I can do. And so I was just kind of out there marketing myself as more of a generalist. And I think in working with you, you're like, you can take on other side searches. No one's going to stop you from doing that, but market yourself as a specialist and really build it that way. And that's when the business starts to come to you. And I think you had to tell me that probably about 50 times before I really let it sink in. Then I really let it sink in. And then it's like, oh my gosh, it's so much more effective, because all of a sudden then when they think like, oh, I need help in this area. They're like, oh, Chelsea, she's the manufacturing recruiter. She takes care of all of these specialty positions. So it's like I had to really shift that mindset into marketing myself as more of a specialist in that area versus just a generalist. And instead of closing off business as I thought it would, that opened up so many more opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And for those of you who listen live, feel free to chime in with questions for Chelsea here um, as we continue to interview her and her success.
Yeah.
Um,
The other thing that I'll add in that I thought doing your program worked really well is I think there was also for me an element of wanting to make sure like the professionalism comes across, especially because I'm in executive search and that's a really
Right.
important part of our business. They're paying me, huge retainers to work on these roles and it's a really serious, chunk of change really up front for a lot of these. And so I always thought like professionalism and making sure everything was very polished. And in working with you, I really learned to loosen up a little bit and that my clients, they like seeing my personality. They
Right.
like how that comes through. And I think I before had this picture of like being professional and what that looked like and how I would show up, but it was almost too rigid and didn't really let people get to know me. So I think that
Mhm.
that's also been a huge change in my business is just like people want to work with people that they like. And so it's like, let people get to know you and decide if they want to work with you. You
Yeah.
attract then the right kind of clients, the right type of energy. And I think that's also like when we talk about retained search versus contingency, I attract a higher quality of client because I build a stronger relationship with them because I'm not just a name, like we get to know each other.
Right. And I think one of the points you brought up earlier was that you actually go on site. Obviously, that's been challenging to do, but
Yeah.
I think that that's such a big thing because people think digital and then everything runs digital. It's like, hey, the basic principles of business, being good on the phone, building relationships, if you can go face to face. And I know that actually surprised me when you talked about it. I was like, no, no, no. After, I got these meetings, I'm going to go walk through their facility with them
Yeah.
and build a relationship. I'm like, that's powerful stuff. That's awesome.
Especially I would say in manufacturing, that's been a huge one for me too, because it's like in the industry I'm in, products are getting made so to be able to go on site and see that, it's fun. You can ask questions about how different things work. Like I just get jazzed up about the businesses I work with then. And
Right.
it also, this from working with me too. I put a huge focus on cultural fit for the people I'm working with too.
Right.
And I think there's something about being in a building, getting a sense of that culture and what it's like that's really important. So in my business, that's something that's really important to me. I know other recruiters, if you're all digital, you're in the IT space, you're only recruiting for jobs that work remotely. Some of those things might not be as important, but for me, that was a huge one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that makes a big difference in terms of your clients, that they see that you're actually kind of a part of their team. It's, and I know it's not just a perception, but the perception usually is when you're willing to take that much time, you care that much more. Right. And I know genuinely you do
Totally.
care that much more, but just from a marketing standpoint and relationship standpoint, people love that.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
awesome.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know one of the things, like in the program, like with you is like you've taken certain elements, but like the content, like you're not a massive content producer. And I'm not saying that as a knock. I'm just saying that because like
No.
so many people, go through my program, create a lot of content. And some people are worried like, oh, well, I see results from not creating heavy amounts of content. And I know you've really just leveraged a lot of the positioning that we've worked on, some of the direct messaging strategies and the mindset work, but do you have any, feedback on the content side for yourself? And
Yeah, I still, and I could probably benefit candidly from doing more of that. I'm at a point, frankly, all the other stuff in your program is working well enough. I've
right,
literally turned down business. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to spend too much time on generating content.
right,
That just isn't my main thing. I do, though, I have taken pieces of that in that I will certainly, if I come out with industry articles or I find studies that are unique, I send and share those with my clients. I do
right,
that usually individually as part of building a relationship.
right,
So I think that there's still an element, and I'll say, I don't put the time oftentimes into like creating fresh content and news all the time. So it's more of I see something else going on in one area, I'll share that and I'll just like send it out to the clients that it's relevant and it's a good touch point and check in for me. Or I'll think like, oh, I haven't seen this person in a while. I'll ping them and, something we've talked about. So it's more individualized versus systematic, but I think there's a lot of benefit to doing it. Certainly, it just isn't an area of the program that I probably leveraged as much as I could have. So
right, right. Yeah, no, and I mean, I think I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying like it's a knock. I just think it's really cool that you've been able to, because we teach so many different angles in there. And, content is just as powerful in how you're using it. The fact that it's, when you're doing it individually, you're still positioning yourself as being an authority by sharing some thought leadership, even on somebody else's content.
Totally.
Obviously, the more you're doing in the feed, the better, but and I think that goes back to the point of like, you've built this business without apology, the exact way that you want it to work for you and your lifestyle, for you and your family. And I think that's just so inspiring. And there's a lot of different ways to slice it and do it. So it's been fun
and
for
to
me to
your
watch.
credit, your program isn't like a one size fits all. And that was something else I was looking for when I was like talking to different kind of, shore up some of these marketing and business development efforts. As I was talking to coaches, they're like, I have a program that's A, then B, then C, then D, and then we go all the way here and then you end up at Z and then you're out the door. And instead, you and I working together, it was like, okay, I'm like, this makes sense for me. This probably doesn't. And you would push me on stuff and be like, well, try this or do this and see if you like it. And so there were things that I tried that I probably otherwise wouldn't have.
Right.
And a lot of those you incorporate them into your business, but it is kind of a take what works and do what makes sense for the type of business that I was trying to build. But you also really invested the time in getting to know me and what it was that I needed for my business versus I'm going to throw you into my program and you're just going to work the process and then you're out the door. Like, you really cared about helping to build my business, and that makes a huge difference.
I appreciate that feedback, and definitely do. I love I love what I do and love the impact I get to make on people's lives, even if it's just a little bit, But I think one of the things that I wanted to touch on, and I just lost my train of thought, so I'm gonna have to kind of think through this as we're all sitting here watching me think, is with there we go. Perfect. I'm back on track now, guys. Thank you for hanging with me. So I was actually having this conversation with my mastermind this morning. And that is kind of doing an audit of your stuff. And good marketers are really good testers. And that's what we really worked on with you. Is we tried this really works. Okay, let's double down on that, right? Let's do more of that. Let's try this. This didn't work for me. Okay, cool. Say bye to it, And the more that we're actually kind of doing internal audits, on our content, on our direct messaging strategies. And once we find one that works, then it's just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I think the thing that's really important is your willingness to try and test, not view anything as a failure. It's just a learning experience. But the more you're willing to do that, the more successful you are, because then you can find like one little nugget that's like, okay, cool, I can do this all day long and I know I'll be able to pick up business. Right. And totally. I think a lot of people are afraid to explore that. So thank you for sharing that kind of an angle of it. I think that's really where it's at, is testing and finding out what works for you.
Well, and to be fair too, I've even gone back and referenced some of the work that we've done in the program. Like, I'll click back in and I'll be like, I feel like I could use a little freshening up here. Or I'll notice, you and I have talked about this too. I'm like, well, now everybody's doing that. So now I need to freshen up my approach and look and feel a little bit different. So then I'll look and I'll be like, gosh, maybe I do need to explore this a little bit more, and start to look at some of the other things. So it's all about like continually reinventing your approach so that you're also fresh to your clients and staying on top of what's new in this industry. I mean, recruiting's a fast moving industry.
Right.
If you're not adapting and changing, like, you're falling behind. I mean, you got to stay with it and stay in front of it. So.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback. It is, it's, and I see this on my own thing, right? Like, if you're going to go into marketing and understanding that like marketing is always evolving, because marketing is about the other person, and the other person is always evolving, what they've learned, the data, the information, you start taking a look at world events that happened last year, right? Like, you have to be able to tweak and adjust to those things, because people's pain points and challenges and things all shift. They're all different, and it's not just in recruiting. Like, everybody that's doing marketing, you always have to be looking at it. And sometimes it's frustrating, because we kind of wanted to be able to press play on something and go, all right, cool, let it come in. But it's always requiring a little bit of tweaks and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that I think is cool, is because you went through my program in kind of phase one of it, right? When I was still bringing it out. And then it's awesome to hear like how 3 years later now you're still using everything, you're adapting, you're using some of the newer trainings that I've provided, and you're still seeing results from the work we did, 3 years ago. It's awesome.
Well, and one of the big things I felt like your training just got me in the mindset of is like, from your client's point of view, always be thinking about their pain points. So, to go back to just like beginning of COVID and manufacturing is shutting down here, shutting down there, instead of looking to my clients and being like, wow, how do I make a quick buck here? It was about like, gosh, acknowledging all the change they're going through. I had connections that I facilitated within my own network between different clients of saying like, you guys are in this industry, you're an essential worker, you're an essential worker. What kind of guidelines are you providing to your employee? What are you doing? And even just helping to facilitate those connections and conversations was a huge value to my client. Now, is that something I'm not sending a bill for that at the end of the day?
Right.
But when they need a search partner, they know that I know the industry. They know that I'm a trusted partner in the space and that I have that network. So it is a way to build credibility. And that's a way I think before I would have thought, well, this has nothing to do with recruiting. Stay in your lane, Chelsea. Instead, you really got me thinking about, what are the customer pain points? How can I help? And I think
Right.
a lot of recruiters, we have that in us. I mean, we go into the business because we like helping people. And I think that that's just an important thing to think about. So that kind of mindset, I think, really helped in my business as well.
100%. And you're thinking outside of the box, right? Like there's ways you can help directly with the actual recruiting, and hiring function. But when you start to look at facilitating, or when you start to look at, different softwares that may be helpful to them, anything, and that's where and I love that you grab onto that, but that's great marketing and business development is you're just a helper. You're the person that's the, and being a facilitator, it also puts you in the position of like an authority too. Like, oh shoot, Chelsea knows
Totally.
so-and-so, Chelsea knows so-and-so. It just puts you into a, completely different light, especially when you're connecting to executives,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that we have the opportunity to just be helpful. And that's where I really encourage people to play, right? Especially as adults, and we get into business and we think that everything has to be structured and serious, and marketing should actually be fun. It should be playful. We should be doing things that were just, and playful still means professional, just so people understand, but literally just playing with your ideas and thoughts and be willing to, like I say, try and learn from something. There's so much in that. And I think that's great that you were able to kind of incorporate, hey, okay, I can't fill a role for you right now, but I can connect you to people, and I guarantee you both those two people are going to be hitting you up when their needs come up here soon.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, and there is an element to this business too. I mean, we talk about the flexibility that working with you and not having to spend as much time on manual business development, helps free up time for travel and some of those other things. But I'm also in the industry, it's always been really important to me to give back. I like helping people that need help in their job search. They're not the candidates that I'm necessarily going to make a big placement fee on or anything like that if they're actively searching in their career. Mm-hmm. But even as I look at with so many people losing roles due to COVID, teams being downsized, even though it's not always travel that I'm carving out time for, I mean, I spend 2 to 4 hours a week just coaching job seekers, helping them with resume review, things like that. And that's not something that I do as a revenue generating activity, but it's something because I'm making money in all of these other areas, I can give back. And that gives me purpose to my work and helps keep me from burning out too. So I think the other thing is for me, working with you just allowed me to put more of my time and energy into the things I enjoy doing. I can do, my recruiting and sourcing efforts, really focusing on my craft. I can help people. I can travel the world. I can pick up my kids from school. It's all of those different things that you kind of look that makes you feel balanced and whole in your life. So being able to have a little bit more purpose in your work, and that purpose isn't always picking up the phone to see if you can get a new job order, so it's spending more time on what brings you joy.
Yeah. And I think that's, when you're looking at automation, I think that's one of the things that people think that automation is going to make you less human. It actually gives you an opportunity to make you more human, because your prospecting, your low level activities are driven by a machine, and you get to be more human in the areas that are important, And I think the thing too is there's also a mindset shift. And I think this is the biggest one in the industry of, there's a big difference between what a revenue driven activity is now versus what it was 10, 15 years ago, right? Yeah. You talk to traditional coaches in this industry, it's hey, you need to be on the phone all day long. And if you're not on the phone all day long, you're not driving revenue. And I know that works. I'm not knocking that's one way, but I would argue that the deeper work, creating content, connecting with people, being a facilitator, is probably more revenue will be generated from that than any other, perceived busy activity we could be doing. Right? Is this a different approach and long-term play? And that's where attraction comes in, right? That's where the inbound comes in, because people are buying your energy and things like that. And I think it's awesome.
That's I'd
Yeah.
agree with you a lot on that one.
You know, what would you say, just kind of last question about the program here, but what would you say was like the most surprising thing about going through the Relevant Recruiter program and working with me?
For me, I mean, probably just how quickly I saw results from it. I mean, I think the first week I started rolling out really some of the automation business reach out things. I thought, well, this is going to help establish me as an expert. And I thought like 12 weeks, I'd maybe start to see a pickup in activity, might be several months. I mean, you and I talked about this. I had that one company reach out. They had three job orders that I got on retained search my first week that I rolled out. I've actually now, I have a contract right now in place for my third executive level search for them. I mean, so they've turned into a killer client for me. And that was one that like, not a company I probably would have reached out to or put the time into trying to develop a relationship with. But because of some of that automated marketing, it's like, as soon as I was on their radar, then I'm like, oh, this is somebody that is potentially interested. I need to pay a little bit more attention to. And that's where, as you said, the automation can take out some of that first level activity to help you focus in then on where you actually invest more of your energy so that it's time value.
Right. That's awesome. Love to hear that. That's great feedback. And of course I remember that was a big celebration for us.
They're still good to me. So
yeah, they're still good to you. And I know they're still coming. You know, let's talk about your travel. I know you've got a couple of things coming up. And for those of you that are listening, just try not to be jealous here, because I'm a little bit jealous, if I'm being honest. What do you got going on over the next, I don't know, week or so?
Yeah, right? So yeah, we've got a beach house just north of Palm Beach that we rented in Florida. And keep in mind, I'm in Minnesota, right? So it's like my right to get out. And I should add, we're doing this with all precautions. We've COVID tested as a family. Like, we're all set to go. We're going to mask up, everything like that. We rented a beach house with some friends down in Florida. So we're going to go do that, taking the kids, whole couple other families that were meeting down there for a week. And I was telling Donnie had asked, he goes, what kind of travel I know you have somewhere fun coming up. Where's your next adventure? Where are you going? Walk me through. So then after that, my husband and I have a trip to, we're going to go to Vegas for his birthday. We have a couple days then that we do some hiking in northern Arizona and Utah. And that's our big April trip. May, we're headed down to Pinehurst, North Carolina, where I have some family. We're going to swing in trips to Charleston and Savannah. And then in June, we're headed to Portugal. So
beautiful. What about July and August? Where are you heading then?
We actually have a family cabin in Canada, so I'll spend some time up there. August, we'll probably just take off a little time and hang out on the lake here. I don't know. And then, well, maybe I'll visit you in California. I told you, it's got a couple trips out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably hang on to those. I have Italy in October. So yeah, some big ones coming up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Chelsea, thank you so much for hanging with me today and sharing your story and your journey and our success, working together. I value our friendship, that we've developed over the years, and I always love, when you shoot me those random texts, hey, I just got another one from that previous client. Like, it's so cool. I mean, that's why I do what I do. I love it. And I love hearing this story and your ability to pick up and travel, but run the business. And like I said, it's inspirational that you built this business the exact way you wanted to, without anybody else's permission, without trying to do 7 figures because everybody else wanted to. I think that's where it's at. I think that's what life's all about, right? Is building these things that we want, not what anybody else wants. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you for supporting in that and having a program where it's not just like you're thrown in there, but you truly do help to bring people's visions to life. So, I mean, that's awesome, and appreciate all the support in getting there, because it's a lot of fun to be Chelsea Kroes. I mean,
yeah. I want to be Chelsea Kroes when I grow up. That's for dang sure.
No, totally teasing. But no, I appreciate our friendship as well. And obviously everything that you've done in helping me build my business. So I appreciate it. And I also love too, I'll just add on that I'm still getting like the updates to the programs and stuff like that. So whenever you come out with new stuff, It's so nice for me, because it's sort of like okay, Chelsea, refresh, check in, see where you're going, keep going. So awesome. No, I love working with you.
Appreciate that feedback. If you could give anybody like one piece of advice as we close this thing out, like what kind of advice would you give the recruiters that are listening to this?
Probably start before you're ready. And I know even as I was coming into work with you, I thought, gosh, I'm so busy right now. I'll wait until I'm not as busy to go ahead and do this. Well, like if you're busy right now, you need this more than anything because you're spending your time on non-value add activities. Like you could be automating, ramping up your income and working less hours. So start before you're ready. And if you think you're too busy, then you need this even more.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Relevant Recruiter Group, give Chelsea Kroes a little bit of love in the comments below and some likes. We would appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging with me. I will have another interview with Adam Posner from the Poscast on Friday at 12. So make sure you don't miss out on that one. Chelsea, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey and hanging with me here today. Everybody, we will see you next time.
Thank you.